Hi, my name is Martin, and today I would like to just talk a little bit about Bishop Fulton Sheen. He was an incredible communicator, was on television for almost 17 or 18 years, on the radio from like 20 years, and he had a magnetic speaking voice, and his eyes were just piercing. They were like deeply set into his face. I guess if you saw him, you would always remember him. But I was touched recently when thinking about him is like, how did he get the name Fulton? When I started to look it up, his name was actually Peter John Sheen. And that's what he was baptized as. Because I kept on thinking, Fulton, like you can use the terms, hey, Johnny, do you want to come out and play stickball? Or, hey, Tom, how's it going? Or Tommy, or Jimmy, how's it going? But what do you do with the name Fulton? Hey, Fulton, do you want to read a book with me? Or, hi, Fulton, do you want to explore some kind of scientific research or medical mysteries? So Fulton. So here's the story, actually. Kind of interesting. He went to his primary school with his grandfather, maternal grandfather. And the maternal grandfather was with him when they asked him, what is your name? And before Peter John could say anything, the grandfather said his first name is Fulton. So that's how he got his name. So from that point on, he was known as Fulton J. Sheen. Kind of reminds me a little bit about the story of Elizabeth and Zachariah when they were asked for John the Baptist, what is the child's name? And Elizabeth said his name is John. And they didn't buy it from her because nobody in your family was ever named John. How could that possibly be? So they went to Zachariah, and Zachariah was mute at that particular time and was given a tablet to write down the name, and he wrote down, his name is John. So his name is John, and Fulton's name is Fulton. Going on from there, what I'd like to do is do a little bit of how he became such an incredible speaker and communicator during a good part of the 20th century. Life is Worth Living was an inspirational American television series which ran on the Dumont television network for about 3¼ years, from 1952 to 1955. And then it was replaced by, or this particular show was replaced and taken over by ABC Network. And that ran until various stages, various names, but it was on the air from basically 1955-57 to about 1968. It was hosted by Bishop Fulton J. Sheen. The series consisted of Sheen speaking to the camera directly and discussing moral issues of the day, often using blackboard drawings and lists to help explain the topic. When the blackboard was filled, Sheen would move to another part of the set and request one of his angels, one of the TV crew, to clean the blackboard. In 1952, Dumont was searching for programming ideas and tried a rotating series of religious programs hosted by a Protestant minister, a Jewish rabbi, and a Catholic bishop. While the other shows did not catch on, the Bishop Sheen was a hit. They found a sponsor in Admiral television sets and became Dumont's only Emmy Award winner during its decade of broadcasting. Life is Worth Living held the distinction of being aired on more stations, about 169, than any other regularly scheduled Dumont program, and is believed to have been the most widely viewed religious series in the history of television. Definitely not going to find too much of that now. Prior to Life is Worth Living, Sheen had appeared on the radio program The Catholic Hour from 1928 to 1952. With his hypnotic gaze, disarming smile, and dramatic delivery, Sheen was deemed a natural for television. Airing opposite NBC's Milton Berle show on Tuesday nights, I think it was about 8 o'clock, Sheen was the only person to be competitive with Berle. Sheen drew as many as 10 million viewers each week. Sheen and Berle enjoyed a friendly rivalry. Berle is reportedly to have joked, "We both work for the same boss, Sky Chief Supreme," making reference to a grade of gasoline produced by Texaco, his sponsor. Later, when Sheen won an Emmy, Berle quipped, "He's got better writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John." As a takeoff on Berle's nickname, Uncle Milty, Sheen once opened his program by saying, "Good evening, this is Uncle Fulty." The charismatic Sheen became one of early television's most unlikely stars, winning an Emmy Award for Most Outstanding Television Personality in 1953. During his acceptance speech, he happily borrowed Berle's line crediting his four writers, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, for his success. Sheen made famous statements against communism. In 1953, an episode of Life is Worth Living consisted of a reading of the burial scene from Julius Caesar, with Sheen substituting the names of Stalin, Beria, Malenkov, and Vyshinsky for Caesar, Cassius, Mark Antony, and Brutus. Sheen dramatically stated Stalin must one day meet his judgment. Believe it or not, 1 week later, the Russian dictator was dead from a stroke. When Dumont ceased network broadcasting in 1955, Sheen moved his show to ABC, lectured for a while, and returned to television from 58 to 61 and with the best of Bishop Sheen, and then 1961 on with the Fulton Sheen program, essentially a revival of Life is Worth Living. The show was broadcast on local stations across America until 1968, with the latter programs in color. Time has changed, and the 1960 programs did not match the audience of his earlier years. Sheen was later appointed as Bishop of the Catholic Diocese of Rochester, and he died in 1979. He is up for canonization as a saint, and this started in 2002, and a cause for canonization was opened to investigate the potential sainthood of Bishop Sheen. This, alongside the availability of his material on the internet, has resulted in a resurgence in popularity for Sheen's work. Regarding the miracle that's associated with the canonization, it happened on September 16, 2010. James Fulton Engstrom was declared stillborn. His mother, Bonnie Engstrom, immediately began praying for the intercession of Fulton Sheen, to whom she had been praying the entirety of her pregnancy. Born at home, the young James was rushed to the hospital, and doctors determined he could not be revived. 61 minutes after birth, his heart began to beat. Despite all the odds, the baby made a full recovery and continues to thrive today. There is no medical explanation for his survival. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the quotes that Bishop Sheen is noted for, which are all pretty interesting. One of them is, "We become like that which we love. If we love what is base, we become base. But if we love what is noble, we become noble." There are two ways of waking up in the morning. One is to say, "Good morning, God," and the other is to say, "Good God, morning?" Moral principles do not depend on a majority vote is wrong. Even if everybody is wrong, right is right, even if nobody is right. God has given different gifts for different people. There is no basis for feeling inferior to another who has a different gift. Once it is realized that we shall be judged by the gift we have received rather than the gift we have not, one is completely delivered from a false sense of inferiority. The proud man counts his newspaper clippings. The humble his blessings. You are infinitely precious because you are loved by God. The greatest love story of all time is contained in a tiny white host, the Eucharist. So I want to thank you for listening. Pretty interesting gentleman. His cause for canonization still continues at this particular time. But I want to thank you for listening, and until the next time, farewell.